started, I'd like to give an introduction here. First off, I'm Chris DeGear. I'm the Division Chair of Business and Technical Education at the college, and serve as webmaster for the Board of Directors. Here we have Mr. Jim Gowan, who is an alderman for our district here in Hillsborough and recently served as Mayor Pro Tem. He is our treasurer and secretary. Next we have Jeffrey Scanlon, who works in laborer in the concrete trades, and he's our president. Next, Jim Crisco, who is an electrical lineman and substation operator, our vice president, and Jamie DeGear, who works as a dog food representative and is our communications manager. So, just with that, the reason that I just personally got involved, I got on the board about a year and a half to 2 years ago because I felt like I didn't really know what was going on, so I decided to come out and play a part. And since then, we've had the opportunity to have a few meetings, get to know each other, get some things done. And with that, I want to just give us a chance to talk about some of those recent activities. And after that, we will move on to some of our planned activities, talk about some processes and some ways that we might be able to see some change, and then wrap up with a question and answer session to give you all time to get everything off your plates that you want us to address. I know there's plenty of questions and we'd love to hear them. So with that, Mr. Jeff Scanlon, please talk to us a little bit about some of these activities.
Good afternoon. Thanks for coming out today. Whenever I was getting ready to leave my house, I was telling my son I was a little bit nervous about speaking in front of people, and he said, "Dad, just start with a joke." I said, "Well, that's a good idea, son," and his ever experienced 7 years of public speaking. He said, "Well, use my joke from last night," because he went around trick-or-treating last night, armed with a joke. So here goes. What is the difference between green beans and boogers? I don't like eating my green beans. So anyway, again, thanks for coming out today. And I'd just like to talk about some of the things that we have gotten done this past year. It's been a pretty exciting and filling year of activities that we have accomplished. First of all, I don't know, most of you probably noticed the dilapidated vacant house at the top of Jeremiah is now gone. We posed that as a problem at a city council meeting, expressing the concern where people were doing drugs in the house and there was actually violent things that had happened there. And once we expressed that to the city council, it got the ball rolling, and now as you can see, the house is demolished. We have a nice, pretty lot there at the beginning of our subdivision. And also, we down on Jeremiah, right where it meets Micah, KAB, I'm sorry. KAB had a lot, the last empty lot in the subdivision where they had not built yet, and they had failed to maintain the lot properly. They had weeds waist high, and they were piling junk there, and piles of rubble and stuff that they got off other job sites, just improper use of the property. It kind of looked like an eyesore in the subdivision, so we contacted them about that and pressed the issue with them and got their ball rolling on that. They got a house built there now, so now the subdivision's complete and we don't have to worry about things such as that any longer. And let's see. We also facilitated the construction of our sidewalks along Michael Lane. You probably were all familiar that the sidewalks were never finished. And we'd had a lot of complaints about this, and it was kind of annoying for walkers and bike riders, things of this sort. So we went ahead and hired a contractor to come in and fix broken ones that the contractors had driven equipment across, and finished the sidewalks in the subdivision, so now we have a complete path to walk and ride bikes along. That being said, Chris over here is a little bit more involved with some of the technical things and are on our board, and I'd like for him to discuss those things.
Sure, so my background is in IT, and as I offered, when I first joined the board, our website was first off, I didn't even know we had one. Then when I found out that we did, it wasn't as user-friendly and accessible as it could be. So I volunteered my time putting together the updated website. It took about 6 months to kind of pull everything together and make it what it is now. It's not wonderful, there's still room for improvement, but you see I was able just today, I'm not just today, but a couple weeks ago to put this notice up about the meeting so we can relay information quickly this way. Also, I'm going to have to scroll down here a little. You can see we also have our subdivision restrictions. I also have been posting our meeting minutes after we've hosted our board meetings. These are our closed board meetings. This is the first time we've been able to get everybody together to have one of these open meetings. But anyway, the subdivision restrictions, you can see them in an easy to follow format. Let me show you that. There's also links to Hillsborough ordinances. So if you have any questions about like what are the regulations around fences, you can just click on fences and see what it specifically says in the board policy. And if this is too easy for you to view, then you can view the complete restrictions in their legal text from the original issuance. So with that, also we decided to come up with a communications manager position, and that's where Jamie stepped in and volunteered. And this is just really so that whenever we get questions from the website, we have somebody that's on it to respond to it. Some people have expressed some concerns about us not being accessible, so this is ways we're trying to make it accessible for you to get us questions. I also have received a question that why don't we just give our own private email addresses? Well, aside from the fact that we respect each other's privacy, really it's more efficient because when you email the subdivision's website, it's distributed to all 5 of our personal email addresses. We all get it immediately. And then it keeps the communication thread in that official email so we can have a historical log of it. It's just a much more efficient and better overall way. And the contact link for that is right here at the top on the bar. You can see there on the right the contact us link. It'll take you to a form you can just fill out, or you can just email us at EagleRidgeSubdiv@gmail.com. Okay. We also previously had little access to your subdivision records as a whole board, and that means like what dues had been paid historically. It was all kept in our treasurer's office, so whenever somebody would ask me a question, I couldn't respond, or Jamie as the communications manager couldn't, so we were able to digitize those and make them secure but accessible to the board members so that we can actually field questions when they come up too. With that, let's go to Jim Gowan. I'm talking a little bit about some of the things we've been doing to remedy violations.
I'm going to start with the joke. The little girl told me, cute little girl, when she was trick-or-treating last night, she looked at me and she says, "Do you know what kitty cats eat for breakfast?" I thought about it a long time, well, not too long, because it was cold. And I said, "No, what do they eat?" And she says, "They eat Mice Krispies." So, there's your joke. My role in this, and I've been doing it since 2006, when I first moved in here and built a home. I've been secretary-treasurer. We've had a continuous board the whole time. But this is by far, no deference to the people who have served, but this is by far the best board. We have more people, we're more active, and we have the finances to pursue some things we should have over the years. The restrictions that we get into, yes, we've had violations over the years. I wound up writing letters about violations and all that. We didn't cover every one out here to tell you. However, the most serious ones we did. And we even had to use the city of Hillsborough to they were actually violations of city ordinances, which I'm well familiar with. We don't like to have to do it, but it's in our restrictions, folks, and everything that's in there, we have to live up to as homeowners and certainly as a board. So, are there violations now? Yes, there are. And we're going to approach them in a humane manner, and some of them are very minor. I'm always searching to see if I'm violating anything. Building permits is a real good one. Being on the Board of Aldermen for the city, I see every permit that's taken out by the city. Over the years, I've seen a lot of permits for things that never came to the subdivision. We're supposed to get a copy or a request for something like fences or whatever. And we have, in some cases. In many cases, we have. So that's the kind of thing that we need to work more closely with people. I've drawn up, I'm an engineer, so I've drawn up things for people, help them find their property markers, and I offer that to all of you, by the way, okay? We're not just here to tell you what to do, we're here to help you do it, okay? And like if a person wants to put in a driveway and all that, I know the building inspector very well, and I know some of the things he's looking for, and I know you can go up to the property line as long as you're not covering up any serviceable utilities. So these are things we can actually help you out with. And if you'll contact the board, certainly I'll do my best to get involved with you. I think, oh, yes, okay. We've retained an attorney. We need to, because many of you got a letter that the assessments need to be brought up to date by the end of this year. Attorneys cost money. That's why we didn't invite him here tonight, or today. However, it's necessary because all of you want to be a major part of this. And I don't mind telling you, I keep the records. We've had some people that have never paid. And that's unfortunate. And we will have to take action at the end of this year. It requires an attorney. We're going to do things right and as humane as possible. But we're all charged with doing it. When we accepted these offices, of course I didn't know how much work it was going to be, but when we accepted these offices, we accept a responsibility as well to make the subdivision as good for you as we possibly can. And that's our goal. I'm sorry? Oh, yes, thank you. We have done, I think, a pretty good job of our taxes. I take care of all of that, Missouri, federal. And while having our taxes done, I have an informal audit done by our tax accounting person, so that they're looking at it to see if all the numbers add up. Very important. We could get a regular auditor in, but it would come out the same because that's what they do. But it's up to date. Our taxes are up to date. We're a nonprofit, so we don't pay profit on our assessments or any of that sort. But we have to maintain a nonprofit status. And I forget the number off the top of my head, but N0072, oh, I think it is something like that. But we're registered with the state of Missouri. And we'll be happy to share any of that information. If there are questions about it, I will tell you it's all up to date. Anything else? Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Jim, because he has worked exceptionally hard to dictate not only the role of the treasurer, but also the secretary, and many complaints from people that, like myself, initially came with complaints because I was out of the loop and did not know what was going on. He's been not only working in his daily life, but taking all of this extra work onto himself free of charge, so thank you. And Jim Prisco is he's our vice president, will talk a little about our upcoming activities.
Hello everyone. I apologize, I'm not a great speaker in public, so bear with me. I'd like to go over some of the things that are proposed, some of the things that need to be addressed. This is us. Can you hear okay? So this is a small list that we have that is improving and expanding with every opportunity. Item number 1 on our proposed planned board activities for the future here. There is a common ground area, the Ameren Highline easement that runs through our neighborhood, running across Micah and adjoining Lake Wallanoa. There have been people on four-wheelers zipping up and down. They've been at people's property or driving in our yards. So we've erected a temporary gate there, just kind of a warning, no trespassing, just a little something. We're proposing to put a permanent gate in there that we can lock, and then Ameren UE would also have a lock to as well, so that we can keep the people from doing this in the future. The next one is these yearly meetings. We'd like to have yearly meetings for everyone in the subdivision to come voice their opinions. We've all stated it, and we all truly do believe that everyone should have a right to voice their opinions, their concerns, and their complaints. I think that's a legitimate thing to do. So with that, we are planning to do this more often. I would like to do it more often than once a year, but time and expenses. So the next thing is the website accessibility and interactivity. Okay, this is a great thing. I love this, and hats off to you, Mr. DeGear. You've done a wonderful job. When I first moved in, I was handed a pack of paper about that thick with all the stuff from my closing. They said, "Here you go. Here's your new home. Thanks for buying, and welcome to the neighborhood." That was great. You know what happens with all those documents? They can never read. They get filed, they get thrown away, whatever the case may be. Now we all have access to all the rules and restrictions that we're given. We're able to keep up, just like Mr. DeGear showed us all on this website. We can keep up with the board activities. I do believe there's a place in there where you can make comments or request favored or not favored, but a process from the board. So hats off to you, Mr. DeGear. You did a great job. That's all I have on my list here. What else we got? Oh, I'm going to turn you over to Jamie DeGear. We will have an open question and answer session. I know everybody's got a lot of comments. I tried to walk around before the meeting and introduce myself, so I'm sorry if I didn't get to talk to you. I'd love to talk to each and every one of you after the meeting, okay? Here's Jamie.
Hi, I'm Jamie DeGear, and I am the communications manager for the board. The reason that we did that was because there was a lot of people that were writing in and asking questions and things like that, and it's hard to, basically we don't have any, since we're a new board, it's kind of starting our new government, we don't have all the legal templates, we don't have all these different letters and things written up and answers for people automatically. So like I was trying to write things up when people would ask things, and just try and make sure that everything was answered correctly and properly and written properly, and so it was understood, and trying to keep all miscommunications from happening, because a lot of times people were going to poor Mr. Gowan over there because he was the one that was the board for a while, because he didn't have any help. And when there was some complaints going and people were talking to him, you can't run it with one person. And so that's why we all kind of said, we'll help you, we'll do this, with you. And we have been trying to get things written, just trying to get everything so that we want all of you guys involved in everything, and we would love, help with this and that. I'm just saying that that's why sometimes with the emails that we're getting, I have to draft those up. I have to write the responses to them. And then when I write that response, whenever you guys send them, it goes to all of them. And then they have to make sure that they like my response. And they have to agree that the response can be sent, or take this out, or also mention this, or, you know, if something that you guys ask and I don't know, you know, I mainly defer to Mr. Gowan for that. But like, there are certain things that I don't know either, and we're all just kind of trying to feel it out and do the best that we can. So, you know, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of things going on, but we're trying to get this to where we're all a cohesive neighborhood and we can all understand everything that's supposed to happen and what's going on. But that's why the communications manager position was created, because there wasn't really anybody to do that. So I did want to say thank you to Jim for keeping up with the board and all the taxes and all of the mailings. You know, people are like, why aren't things getting, you know, mailed all the time? It takes a long time to draft it and print it and fold them and stuff them and even keeping up all of the addresses and the stamps, and it costs money, and it's just, it's a lot of work, and I don't know how he did it, you know, in the one. And I know they mentioned it before, I did want to say again, please contact us on the website so that way we can all get your comments, questions, and everything. If you can just mail emails that way, because people were going up to Mr. Gowan and they're calling him on the phone and they're going up to his door and things like that. And it's like, this is supposed to be where we all can agree on things and get things, you know, set, and not just one member having to take on all the responsibility. Things do take a while to respond to and to agree upon them and get things drafted, so it does take us a little while. So since we don't have everything just where we can just shoot out an email to somebody, because, you know, we have that all set up, we don't. And I do want to say that because we are all volunteers, we don't get any reimbursement, we don't get any breaks on our assessments, we don't get anything like that. So you gotta understand that it's not like we're, you know, doing stuff, you know, just for the money. We're doing this because we want, like you guys, you know, we want to try and do stuff for the neighborhood, which is why we're getting some of this stuff done finally, because like you said, we've actually got people that are on the board that are trying to do this. So for the next thing, I think is Mr. Gowan to talk about the water retention fund. You want to talk about it?
In our property that we have here in Eagle Ridge, it's a lot of common ground. And on that common ground, at the southeast corner, you may not know about it, but it was a few years before I found out about it, we have a stormwater retention pond. Now, being on the board, I know that this next year they're going to do a survey of that to see if that stormwater retention pond is working properly, if it has leaks, and we're going to have to do whatever is necessary to bring it up to code. Now, stormwater retention is covered by the state of Missouri, so it's not like we have a choice, and we can't push it off into the city because I've already tried. And it didn't work. So it's our ground, and we have to work with it. Along with that, there's at least one stormwater drain I know that, and it happens to be close to where I live, that the builder didn't extend the drain all the way out to the end of the homeowner's property. It's caused severe erosion, and it's a problem. We may have that other places in the subdivision. And if we do, if you have a drain that ends before the end of your property, we would like to know about it. We'd like to take a look at it, because when we go into this, it's going to be costly, yes, but it's necessary. It's a law. That's all I have on stormwater. Okay. Changing subdivision restrictions. I don't know how many of you have committed all of the restrictions to rote memory. I doubt that you have. I haven't. But in there, it tells that, first of all, and this is a question that came up a lot, how did you get on the board? Well, we were initially appointed, and we initially, after that, we choose candidates that come to us and elect them onto the board. It's all done proper, and we have the documentation over here to show that. I think it's important to understand that. Would I personally like to have elections? Sure. I think it's part of it. I'm talking about elections as the whole subdivision enters into, but that's not the way these are written. And to change these restrictions from what they are takes a 2/3 affirmative vote. That's a spelled out restriction change that you want to make. Rentals have come up a lot, nothing against renters, but it's come to my attention over the years, hey, why do we have that? Because quite frankly, there are other subdivisions that don't have that. It was stricken from their restrictions that were built off of ours. I know that Brickyard doesn't have it, and I know that Box Points doesn't have it. Well, we do. And, that's a big legal problem to change it. Some of the things we're talking about have to be changed legally, have to be voted on legally. As we get our communications, I think they've improved fantastically over the last year, but as we get them up to where they really need to be to get all the input, we're going to wind up having people voting with probably registered letters and all that sort of thing. So you have to make sure, and I know this from the other work that I do, you have to make sure that the voting is done correctly and that you're dealing with the person that actually owns the property. It's, you have to dot the I's and cross the T's.
I'd just like to first of all thank everyone here on the board. I think you've filled your cards very well and seem to be very clear. Now, we're going to have an open question and answer session, but before that, I'd just like to touch on, and I think each one of these guys kind of touched on it in their own way, to the fact that I too, probably like many of you in this audience, had questions and concerns about the board and where the money was going and things like that, actually for years, and I finally decided I was going to volunteer and go up there and see if they had an open space on the board. So they invited me up for a meeting to be voted in, and I walked in, told them I was concerned, and they voted me in as president. So here I sit, and I think we have a great board, and I think you guys are all doing your jobs very well. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm not as involved as some of these other, Chris and Jamie and Jim Gowan, and Jim Crisco over here. They put in a lot of time, and I'd really like to thank them for that. And before we start the question and answer, I'd like to give the mic over to Chris DeGear here because he's already fielded several questions, and I think he fielded them in a great way, and it might clear up some questions before you ever have them. So that being said, back to you, Chris.
All right. To be clear, this is a team effort in compiling these answers, but we did get several really good questions from concerned people that had many of the same questions you probably have that we have. First off was, when will we get an expense report detailing where our money's being spent? So we hear this a lot. People want to know where the money's being spent. My reply to this is we have not made a practice of compiling expense reports. Our expenses are very minimal. We've got some basic office expenses. This year we had some projects, and we asked Jim Gowan to bring financial listing of expenditures so that we could go over those. Really looking through these, the money going out goes to our insurance, it goes to mailing and supplies, audit and tax preparation, Mailing and supplies, audit and tax preparation, again, American Family Insurance, mailing and supplies, and law attorney expenses, and more office supplies for printing costs. I mean, as we've tried to ramp up these communications, we have to go out and get a new laser printer so that we could, rather than using Jim's old inkjet printer that is not very cost efficient first off, plus it's, you know, so we got a newer, inexpensive laser printer, so that's on here. And we also paid to repair the sidewalks. That was $3,700, nearly $3,800, so that was the largest expense. And we also did a small project, repair and install the new sidewalks, those stretches that were not completed. And then the storm sewer, there was a storm sewer that was busted, and rather than, the city wasn't going to be able to come take care of it, we patched it ourselves. We just went and got some concrete from Home Depot. So the expenses, very minimal, none of it goes into our pockets, and hopefully that helps to clear up some of that confusion. I'm sure Mr. Gowan would be happy to share more detail about those expenditures if anyone has a special interest. Beyond that, who determines who's on the board? Jim's already talked about that. There was some confusion because if anyone has actually read through the full restrictions posted on the website or the ones you received initially, it states that the board was built by the developers with their interests in mind, with people from their respective parties. That led some people to think that we are tied to the developers, but by this point, there is no ties to the developers. It's been turnover, turnover, turnover. We're all just homeowners that live and own the homes in the subdivision, do not get any compensation, and are not tied to the homeowner or to the developers. There was also the discussion of why don't we share our personal contact information, and why haven't we made it more visible who we are? And that's a great point. We haven't put our names, I think we can go about soon here, at least posted our names and positions up there so you know who you're talking to, but the point remains, it's not really, we're not going to be sharing our personal email addresses, it just doesn't make sense. Let's see. Why haven't we had any social meetings, or any meetings? Well, was my concern too, so thankfully we've been able to pull this off. It took quite a bit of working. We wanted to get this going in June, but this is how long it takes. So here we are in November, finally things fell in line. Also fielded questions that according to Missouri law, all homeowners are entitled to a copy of the taxes that were paid with our money. That may be true, but the response is we haven't paid any taxes because we don't have any income. We get your dues that are used to pay our expenses. As Jim explained, he's explained previously that we don't even have an interest-bearing bank account because then we would have to report and pay taxes on our interest earned, and it would just complicate things that much more. So we keep it very simple, money in, money out, no taxes. Where's the written documentation on the rules of the POA? Sometimes, and this is an issue because this person said that none was provided at the time they purchased their home. Well, if you close on your home with a reputable salesperson and at an actual closing, then you're going to end up being provided a copy of your restrictions. On the other hand, it is possible that if you have a for sale by owner, you purchase it directly from the homeowner, it could be that you did not receive a copy of those at that point. So, in any case, they're posted on the website. They're in their original unmodified format, and then they're itemized like I showed earlier. When do we get to vote on rules? When do we get to vote on these subdivision restriction rules? That's the good question. If you want to change any of these rules, we'd love to hear what your suggestion of changing the restrictions would be. What we need to also consider is that, as Jim explained, will require 2/3 of our population, not our board. He didn't clarify. That means the population of the subdivision, every homeowner. So, I would think if you want to make a restriction change, it might be a good idea, like when we originally, before I was even on the board, we went around and petitioned to lower the speed limits from 25 to 20. Got some signatures, we were able to take that to the council, they voted, we got it improved. That's kind of what I'm thinking that we need to do. If you've got a suggestion, we get a petition, we find enough people who are on board, that we can actually put it into a formal vote, and maybe we can get something changed. Please.
The thing is, not everybody that's an owner lives in this subdivision. some of the rental properties, we have people as far as California, and I deal with them as well. When we make a change, we have to make sure that those people are notified ahead of time. We have to get their input just like we're getting yours. And once we get that, we have to make sure that they have the correct venue to do the voting. And quite frankly, it's going to be a registered letter. So it's not just a matter of who is living here, it's a matter of who owns the property.
Other questions? We've got just a couple more, and then we'll move on to open questions. If we are paying road dues, why are the roads in such bad shape? So I think this came from a misconception that your subdivision dues are tied to the roads, while in fact the roads are city property. They're managed and maintained by the city. We have taken the responsibility to take care of the sidewalks, but the roads, unfortunately, when we get complaints about why MoDOT doesn't plow or why the roads are in such bad shape, all we can do is turn around and relay those complaints to the city, and we're happy to do that. But you're also welcome to submit those complaints directly to the city. Then what is going to be done with all of this on-street parking? I don't know how any of you feel about this in this room particularly, but the question has come up many, many times. I've been a homeowner. I've bought and built my home originally from the developer. I've been here 7 years, not on the board, but 9 years, my goodness. So I've seen the progress of this issue. When we first moved in, it was clearly stated that there was no on-the-street parking in Hillsborough City ordinances. They came through and enforced that, writing tickets to everybody that parked overnight. And then they did it again. And then people got mad and they complained to the city and they asked them to stop enforcing that, and they did. So at this point, the city has stopped enforcing that for us. And there is, go ahead.
I was instrumental in getting the current rules for the city. At a point, and it may be even before you moved in, Chris, but at a point, you couldn't get an emergency vehicle through. You know, we had double wide dualies, you know, parked right across from each other. You get a motorcycle through, that's about it. And so we looked at it, we were looking at one side parking, and we were looking at a lot of different aspects of it, but everybody likes one side parking unless it's on their side, so that's a bit of a problem. So what we came up with is an ordinance that, you know, I'll try not to dig too deep into this, but from midnight to 6 a.m., no on-street parking. That ordinance is still in effect. However, what you have to realize is that the police department has their priorities too. They've had some pretty serious things going on in the past, so parking doesn't get the attention that it might.
It's not posted anymore. Not every sign's posted because I did not know about moving in.
Not all ordinances are posted.
Talking about street signs, right?
Yeah,
And no parking
parking
between
sign.
12 and 6.
Yeah.
But you see, you can't put that sign up. Because when you put that up, it means you can't park any time during the day. And the ordinance says you can't park between 12 p.m. and 6 a.m. You could do that, yeah.
Where would I put my teenager's car?
Okay, I see that we're going to open up into question and answers, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this wireless mic around so that everybody has the chance to hear your questions and let the board respond.
If we could, we've been asked to be very careful with that microphone, so just take care of getting it off.
I'm just curious where I'm supposed to put my teenager's car if I've only got one driveway.
Jeff, you've had an issue with having a lot of vehicles. How have you just dealt with that?
Well, to be honest with you, and I understand your concern about the sign, there's no signage about when you can and can't park there. And I unfortunately myself found out that there was an ordinance against parking on the street by a ticket that was on my car. But bringing that back to, you're asking why haven't we posted signs, that would be something that the city would have to do, so it'd have to be brought to their attention.
I did when I went up there to discuss the ticket, and And his response was, we just haven't gotten around to it yet. So then, in my personal opinion, they shouldn't get around to posting your tickets until they get around to posting the signs.
I agree with that, but it depends on where their priorities are. Anything else?
Okay, would you ask, what should someone do that has no other, about what specifically?
Can you not put 3 vehicles in your driveway?
No, I have two.
So you have a 2-car driveway and 3 vehicles.
And a 2-car garage, right?
What's the 1-car garage?
It's a 2-car garage, but my wife's Suburban doesn't fit in the garage. So
Well-
we've got 3 cars, 1 goes in the garage. I'm not gonna move a car out every time I wanna get out of the garage.
Well, there's a couple answers for this. You can deal with the risk of getting the ticket, as many people do.
Park in the yard like everybody else.
You can park in the yard like many people do. There's no ordinance against that, unless the vehicle is unlicensed and being.
As long as it's operational and licensed.
Again, if this is a concern of the majority, maybe it's something we can get changed by a 2/3 majority vote about parking in the yard, but up until this point, you can park your vehicle in the yard. You won't hear anything from us or the city.
To answer your question, or my attempt to answer your question, I think that, you guys hear me, okay? I'm great with the mic here. So we all have certain scenarios where we're not going to be able to park in the road or in the driveway. We may have to park in the road, we have company or whatnot. If we can come up with a solution that can appease everyone, which may be impossible, but if we can come up with a better solution, by all means, we will as a board go to city council and represent everyone. We've done this in the past, we have no problems doing it. I think the hard thing would be getting a consensus among everyone. You know, in the past, with the whole parking issue in the past, we've had people complain innumerable times because they were getting these tickets, and then you had the other group that wanted no parking on the street. So we're trying to walk a fine line here. And there again, this is a city ordinance, so this isn't really something that we're enforcing. We don't have that kind of power to enforce that, nor would I want to. But by all means, we will approach the city council in everyone's behalf.
Well, I think one side is park.
Okay, so here, one-side parking could be a good solution.
What has come up over the years is some people have had people come in from out of town and they didn't have enough parking in their driveway. So I suggested that they might use the commuter lot because that way they could be parked from midnight to 6 a.m. without any problem. Some did it, some didn't, but at least that was available to them. I mean, I've had a lot of people come in from out of town. We had to look at that because they had large vehicles and trailers and all kinds of things. So you might think about that as one option. Now, I don't know if that solves what you're talking about so much, but you try to find something that suits everybody. And I know that all these homes were built with a 2-car garage.
You know, something else that I've heard is as a proposed possible solution is even if we aren't going to, we can't enforce or not enforce this, at least if we could, as a community, when you see somebody's parked on one side of the street, maybe stagger your parking just a little so you're not right across from each other. You know, at least we have a little extra gap for some emergency vehicles. That's the only thing that I've heard from anybody that seems to be something we could possibly agree on. This young lady has a question.
I just want to make the comment that years ago, I can't tell you exactly what year it was, but I've been there 10 years. And there was meetings, 2 or 3 of them at the city hall, open parking on the street. And it was voted in. Everybody got a piece of paper made out by the committee, and everybody voted on it. It was printed in the newspaper, 2/3 majority, there would be no more parking from midnight to 6 o'clock. And if you did, you got a ticket. They enforced it for a short time and then stopped. Now, I personally have caught a couple of policemen going up and down the street, and I was out in the yard, and I stopped and I said, why are you not enforcing this anymore? I don't know what you're talking about. We don't even know that there is such a thing.
I can promise you that I will go and tell the right people that the police have to be aware of those parking statutes. I can promise you that.
They deny it.
I don't really care for the parking on the street, but I'm not really too much of a complainer about it. But I did have my sister staying with me for a while, and I actually went up and got her a parking permit to be able to park on the street so that way she didn't get a ticket. So I do know that if you do have family coming in from out of town, you can do that, and they will not ticket your vehicle. So one of my solutions would maybe be if you are parking on the street, and you know his situation, if you can prove that your vehicle is licensed to the homeowner that is in that house, maybe they should be able to park on the street. But other people who just have 7 or 8 people living in there, and 8 people are driving, I don't know where all these people come from, but they're the same ones that are parking over and over again on the street, 3 vehicles on the street from one house. I know that those people do not physically own that property to be able to live there. So maybe that's something we could look into, is if you can prove that that is your vehicle and that is your home, maybe you can park there.
Interesting suggestion. Any other questions here?
I'd like to change the subject just a bit. First of all, I appreciate what you guys are doing. I do understand you're homeowners and you're not out embezzling money or anything. My biggest concern is you talking about voting each other in and having board meetings and such. I've never, ever been invited to a board meeting. Isn't it part of the charter that we are to be included in board meetings if we so desire?
No, it isn't.
Why not?
It's just the way the restrictions are written.
Well, I mean, this is a homeowners association, and it's supposed to be representing us. Doesn't it make sense that we get a say, if nothing else?
I agree with you, except for one thing. We're bound to go by this as it's currently written. Now, I think that would be a great change, but that's the way it is. I can tell you because I've been on the board since it was established, and it was originally established with Rick Avila being on the board. He was one of the builders. However, he had no financial responsibilities. We made sure that we kept that ourselves for the board members. He was just sitting on the board, which was his right under contract. But here again, that's something that would have to be changed in the restrictions. And until those change.
I think his question though, like whenever you're like, well, how were people voted in and things like that? Well, like I know that you were like by yourself for a while, so people, like you can say why they went off. So the way like we ended up getting voted in, when we found out about Mountain, which is why people like go to them because, or it was the only one there and everybody like had this information like going to his house and calling us. So we like, went up there and he was like, hey, you know, I don't know exactly what happened to other board members. He knows that, but it was just something where
We've always had a duly constituted board of at least 3 members. When we had Rick Adler on there, it was 4 members, but he had a limited capacity. We've always had the duly constituted board. However, we didn't always have an active board, believe me. And there's nothing against the people, it's just the way it was, okay? However, with these fine young people coming in and asking questions, I thought, well, let's draft some. So, and I'll tell you, they've done their roles admirably. I'm really impressed. And it does help. It allows us to do this sort of thing. And, you know, I want to see more of it.
we would love more knowledge.
I'd just like to touch on this gentleman's question just a little bit more. The last thing I would ever want anybody in our community to feel like is that you don't have a voice. We not only carry out the functions of the board, we also are your representatives for any complaints and questions, anything like that. That's what we're here for. And every homeowner in our subdivision has a voice and an opportunity to approach whatever concerns you may have, and we will be more than happy to look into them and possibly get something done about it. Now, as far as the voting in new members, we were all strictly interested and came up and volunteered and were asked to join. We have touched on different things about possibly expanding in the future to where maybe we could have some more representation from other areas of the subdivision. Maybe there's concerns on one street, maybe that where we live is not a problem. Maybe we wouldn't even have thought of something that you're dealing with. So again, we have the website and email, and any concerns, questions, or just interest in volunteering your time, we'd be more than happy to hear you out and look into it further. So that being said, if no one else has anything else for this question, or do you have anything else, sir?
I'm good, thank you.
You're welcome.
What is the attorney's name?
James Kreitler. He's with Wegman Law.
Okay, I've got a question. So, actually, I've got one. First of all, great job on the house, getting rid of that, and thank you for taking care of the sidewalks. But I do have 2 questions, and one suggestion and 2 questions. My first suggestion is, I would think, you know, from the financial part of it, it would be nice to have, like, annually, maybe just a report. I know you don't want to have to get into this whole big reporting thing, but a simple report that says, this is what we took in last year, these are our expenses, this is our balance. And that, I think, I would be very comfortable if I just once a year, or if you just said it's going to be posted on the website or something once a year annually or something. That's just a recommendation, and you need to think about that.
I like this recommendation. The problem I see with it, and there's ways we can do this, you'd have to create a username and password through the website so you have a private area to view this, because it's not something we'd want to post on our public website.
Well, actually, we might frame that so that, it's a good suggestion, we might frame that so that we're giving a general report. What we want to be very careful of is we never give out anybody's information about what they owe or anything like that. That's wrong to do that. But like I just put together a report for 2013 and 14. And by the way, at the end of the year, I do give the board our position financially at the end of the year. I do an annual report. However, it's not as in-depth as this, because this shows everything. Like when Jeff had to have materials in order to repair the drain, which he did by himself. But those kind of things need to be reported, and I see no reason why we couldn't put this on the web.
Okay.
Which would.
I think everybody has a reasonable right to see that.
I might have a concern about posting publicly the bank account amount.
listen.
I don't really see where that could be a problem. I mean, we're telling them primarily.
I don't see that there's any, I don't see any legal issues
No.
that would result from us doing that. In fact, I do think there's a to see an income and outgoing.
Yeah.
And your question, are you looking for a real detailed expense or just maybe an
No,
income and expense?
I think what you mentioned was, to me personally, I don't want to speak for everybody, I can't speak, I don't speak for everybody. Me personally, I would just like an idea, okay, this is what we brought in, this is what we spent, just so we have an idea of what's going on, so we don't.
I understand.
It's not.
You had two other questions, didn't you?
Yeah, the other question I had was, first one is,
That's what I'm thinking.
with, well, one of the questions I have, I forgot a couple, but I have three questions actually. But the first question, one question I do know, the city's responsible for the road, so there's that one stretch right there as you're going out towards the law offices, going up the hill there, out towards the law offices. It's looked pretty bad for quite a while. I know they repaired it somewhat at one point, but I don't know if they intend on repairing that again. But it'd be nice if the city would fix that the right way this time and make sure it's repaired for good if it shouldn't be doing what's been. I don't remember what my other questions are at this point. So that's
I can speak to that as an alderman because I keep hitting them up to repair the street. It is their responsibility. Our subdivision is the only one of the new subdivisions that had the streets adopted by the city. Brickyard does not, and neither does Eagle Ridge, Hawks Point. Sorry. The problem is, you saw all the expansion that we've done on the streets coming through the city, the old Business 21. That has taken a lot of street money. Probably not going to do that next year. So what we've done as a city is we've looked at the various places in the city, had an engineer come in and take a look at the streets and decide which ones need to be done first. We're pretty high on the list. And I'm going to push to get that done. Now, I don't know if I'll get it done next year or not, I'm going to try.
Isn't there an underground spring there? That's why it keeps messing up?
I'm only going to give you my opinion. I was in the Army Engineers. We built airports and everything out of nothing. Runways, bridges, the whole thing. I suspect that they didn't do the subsurface compaction properly. And, this is happening in the other new subdivisions too, by the way.
The blacktop is not repair.
No.
It will be replaced with concrete. That was a Band-Aid. Yeah.
That looks like Dolly Parton's proposal.
I agree. I was upset to see that too. But we have big, beautiful concrete streets, and then they throw blacktop patch in there. It was a Band-Aid.
We could have hired Jeff.
Yeah. So
I'd be happy to do the job, but it would be through the subdivision board.
when we do go to city council and bring these things up, and we have a great advantage because we have an alderman that's on our board as well. So when we do go to these city council meetings and bring things up like the roads being repaired, the more people that we can get with us at that time to share their bad experience with it, the better. I can tell you that from many experiences, the squeaky wheel gives the grease. And if we go there as a whole unit with 20, 30 people, if we can get that thing to be great, the council tends to notice that. So.
Every Monday night at 6:30 p.m. Well, let me put it this way. I said that wrong. Every first Monday of a month, okay?
All right, I'm gonna change the subject. I'm not meaning to complain, $50 a year to live in the subdivision is nothing, it's great. But I'm gonna be honest, and I'm one that is very aggravated that if someone's been actually in charge of the subdivision, I've been here since 2004, why we have not received a bill in the last 6 years, and all of a sudden we get this bill that says now we owe $450 in back, when that's a lot harder for some people to come up with at one time than it would be for us to have just gotten the bill for $50 a year. So I paid for 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden I haven't gotten a bill, I have no idea who to send it to. How come I haven't gotten a bill?
We sent out bills in 2006, 2007, and there was a time when we didn't send out bills because inactivity of the board, not bad people, which is inactivity, okay? And I threw myself into that too, by the way. But, did that answer your question?
Well, it does answer my question, but I didn't know who to pay. How was I supposed to know who to pay that $50 assessment to when I have no bill?
Well,
second off,
We had all that problem too, like, that was like right when we started in the world, and then that was one of the big things he had by himself, like, we're supposed to be getting dues, and there are some people that weren't paying every year, like they just, I don't know, we didn't know we were getting things that were taken either. And it was like right when, oh, I'm sorry, and it was right, that was like right when we kind of started up on the board, like right, and we decided to do, like, to get everybody up to date, we had to follow the restrictions in there with the assessments. So we did have to do that, and then we as a board, because of that big, because it was big, what you owed if you hadn't been paying, was what we tried to do was we had to word it and vote to where people would have the whole year to pay like their half of their balance, and then they had till this year, they had all year to pay the other half of the balance before we would have to, because the restrictions say that there's the, the interest or whatever that you have to pay, and we didn't want to have the people to pay the interest, because you get like the compounding interest and all that, and then have to figure all that out. Anyway, we were like that too. We were trying to kind of bend, I guess, the restrictions a little bit to everybody's benefit, because we all on the board had the same thing. None of us had paid either, and we had like a big bill, and I just made my last payment to it, and it was just like, oh, finally I got to pay off.
okay, so now that goes to say, the neighbors who have been around me that no longer live there, but live there within that gap, how are we getting their funds for living there at that certain time?
I can answer that. When a home closes for sale, all of the title companies in the area, for instance, Hillsborough Title, are obligated by law to find out what is owed on that property. And I can show you many examples where I filled out what is owed on the property, I emailed it to them right away, and when it closed, they wrote a check for that amount. A couple of times they tried to prorate it, and I said, we don't prorate. And one even sent an attorney's letter and all that. I said, you can do that if you want to, but we don't prorate. And they paid it properly. But that's, you know, I don't know, that's the way it is.
There have been instances that people have been able to sneak out without paying their dues, and then those are still outstanding. That's, I think, kind of the whole.
There may be. However, those people will get notification from our attorney January 1 of next year or thereafter that a lien will be placed on their property. So they will eventually pay, and they'll pay the attorney's fees, and they'll pay everything else involved. So.
As you can see, the inactivity also it created, more work for us as well. So we got catch up that we're still trying to do, which is the letters that you sent out to them.
Well, ma'am, I think this is a great question because it's the exact question which led me to Jim Gowan's house to pursue being on the board. And I can't speak for the past activity of the board, because I've only been part of the board for a little over a year now. I can tell you that in the future, we will be setting bills annually. And as for not knowing about your bill being due and things like that, this is something that happened to me and my family as well. But the fact is, because of the legal binding contract that we're all part of in the subdivision, nobody will ever get away with not paying. And somehow, some way, the dues will have to be paid by every single homeowner. But I think we've given you a very fair opportunity to not be subject to the compounding interest, and given you a couple of years now, I think, to be aware of what you owe and have time to settle up with the board, with the homeowners association. That being said, I think that if, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but Jim, do you have anything else on this?
Well, some of the things that we have to do as a board would rather be, I guess, a lot more lenient on. But there's nothing lenient about these restrictions. It's what we're forced to do. We did stay putting the 10% on there because I looked at the wording and it said may. Yeah, I took a couple of law classes, but I'm not an attorney. But may doesn't mean shall or will. And so we were able to legally say, okay, we're going to hold off on the 10%. But we're at the point now to where, you know.
Now that we're actually doing something, we do need the funds to come in so we can get this stuff being done.
I just think it would have made me feel better if right before I got that bill, we would have had a meeting like this going in. That way I would have felt like my funds are going to something good because nothing has changed that we can actually see, and all we see is just money when really we don't even know what's going on.
We thought the same thing, too, which is why we kind of put on the website with the letter.
So now we're trying to figure stuff out, and now we have 60 days to pay, $600 or.
We tried to have a meeting.
I had no problems paying my $50 a year for the first 4 years that I lived there. Once I stopped getting a bill, I had no clue where to pay it. I totally agree with paying for the subdivision. That's not my concern.
I never got a bill. I have not paid it. We paid our first dues the year we built the house, but not a word came. I didn't even know you guys existed until I got the bill saying I owed $400.
You know what? That was the exact same situation I was in as well. I had no idea who to pay the check to, and to be honest with you, I kind of thought that the board had absolved in the city. I see the city trucks plowing the roads, and I'm thinking, okay, everything's done. And we would have liked to have been able to absolve all the dues. Unfortunately, we can't. There have been people that have been paying dues responsibly, on time, to the board. Mr. Gowan had collected dues from people who had never missed a payment. So we can't strike the dues away at this point, and we had to come back retroactively and collect them from everyone. So I'm in the same boat with a lot of people here. I had to pay a big chunk too.
We don't have a sign. The one sign, the street sign is misspelled for Jeremiah.
I know.
And the city manages the roads. I don't even know what this $50 is for.
Well, it's for a little bit, which, a little bit.
Well,
but whenever we get this and we see depleted the house at the top of the subdivision, I'm like, you guys didn't do that. Like, I understand that you're fighting your time to go and have that done, but it's not like our $50 a year is doing that. So it's almost.
You're talking about the entrance sign at the top of the hill. Yeah, actually, we've all been fighting really hard for this, and Mr. Gowan will fill you in.
Okay, day one, when I moved in, I said, where's the sign? Okay, and they promised me we're going to put one up, and they didn't. And it's a thorn in my side, to the point to where Since 2006, I've been writing letters and working with Fortune Financial up in Arnold. It's a financial corporation. They own that piece of property. And I've gotten somewhat of a commitment that I'll share with you if you'll only realize it's a maybe. The rest of the board hasn't heard this because I got it recently. Fortune Financial, I thought would be mad at us because we made them tear down the derelict building, and quite frankly, I was taking pictures and wanted that puppy down, as did everybody else here. It's dangerous. So I thought they wouldn't talk to me, but I decided I'd give them a call anyway. What the heck, I've heard no before. And they were very cordial. The gentleman I talked to, Mr. Jones, he said, you know, what we're thinking about doing with the monetary situation in the area gets better is we might put up a Fortune Financial bank outlet there. And he says, if we do, we might be able to come to some agreement on a piece of property. Right at the, not on the corner of Business 21, but certainly where our subdivision starts. I'll continue to push that. I'd love to see it, and I hope before I die it happens. Okay. But there is a possibility. Now, we've also sent letters for 3-4 years to the people living in the area. First of all, you have to understand, they're under no obligation to have that put on their property. We've offered money, and they didn't want it because I didn't get any things back. But I know they got the letters and all that, and I respect their feelings. So I don't think we can count on that at this time, having it put up on somebody's property. I talked to the city about their 15-foot easement, and they said, we can't do that because it's an easement on somebody's property, but it's still their property. And I said, oh, okay. So we're stuck until we can get Fortune Financial to move on the point. Yes, sir.
I got a question. Where the sign that says like Jeremiah or Micah, you know, street sign.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you just put Eagle Ridge subdivision on that top of that little sign where the street is? Then that would show it's Eagle Ridge subdivision, and it's Jeremiah. That's the street. That's where the street sign is. Just put another sign that says Eagle Ridge subdivision on top of that sign.
Good suggestion. I'll take that up with the city and see if that can be done.
And then we wouldn't have to worry about fighting with the, you know, putting up a sign in there. But it, you know, you just have to go on the top of the street sign. That's all we have to do.
Good idea. I'll see what we can do. Okay.
So I remember my other two questions. The first question is, the dues that we're paying, they're dues by December 31st. Are we paying for the 2014 year, or is that paying for the 2015 year?
You're paid for 2014. 2015 doesn't even become due until January 1st.
Okay. And then my second question is, in regards to the fees, the money that you spent on the sidewalks, wasn't the original developers responsible for putting those in?
You were talking about the extra sidewalk that we put in on my road. Not that we made the sidewalks.
Like they started putting them in and then they just stopped.
Yeah.
No, we were responsible when the property was deeded to the homeowners association. We were responsible for putting in sidewalks, and quite frankly, the city has been putting a fee on me every year, like, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do this? Well, finally, we had enough money and enough people to get involved, to actually get it done right. I might add that sidewalk will take a 50,000-pound truck. Guaranteed. That's on the common ground I'm talking about.
The other ones, we just did some repair.
Yeah, I'm one of the people that probably owes about like $500 just because I didn't know about it at all. I never got a letter to the bill. But to be honest, I kind of feel like I would just be throwing that money off a cliff because I don't know what you guys have planned. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of anything in the subdivision but houses. So I don't know what warrants all that money every year being spent out for that. Because if there's just houses, I don't just know what you can spend it on. So I have a hard time cutting that check out. I just thought it was going to throw it right off a cliff and I'll never see any of it again.
Well, every penny is accounted for, I'll guarantee you that. And I understand what you're saying. We, by state law, should put fencing up separating our common ground from other owners. That's a law.
What's the common ground? I don't know what it is.
Would you explain where the common ground is?
Okay, the common ground, we have 30-something acres of common ground. I forget the exact number.
Behind where? Behind what?
It's
street?
behind some of the homes. And, oh, no, it's all the way around.
Can we preface that saying usable common ground, because behind the home, it's just what we put. That's what it's.
Well, in the restrictions, it's common ground, and anybody who enters it is at their own risk. There's a reason for that. I checked to see what it would cost if we could open up trails and all that sort of thing to go in there, and our insurance company threw me a number. And I said, we don't even collect that much in a year at $50 a whack. I mean, $50 a whack, 130 homes, you're looking at $6,500. And so basically the way it's written in here is anybody that goes in there is going at their own risk. However, it doesn't keep us from having to fence it. There's old fences that are broken down. I think all of you guys have been back there, right? And that's something we're going to have to do.
Where does our money go? The website costs money. Sending out those letters, just stamps themselves.
Please use the microphone.
The stamps alone were $78-something to send them out, and then we got to buy the printer paper and the ink. The website's that we have the attorney, if we ever need any legal questions. We've got papers that we have to do. We have to do the website. I don't know how much it costs you, Chris.
Yeah, it's like $60 a year, maybe 70. Just
and
for the
then
venue.
filing taxes, he's been filing taxes, and I don't know how much we had to pay the person to do, like,
Well,
filing
those
the
are all,
taxes.
those are all expenses to support the board. Because nothing.
It doesn't support the board.
It supports the necessary
The neighborhood.
requirements of the board. I mean, and that's something that we have to do.
I mean, people wanted restrictions up, so we have restrictions up. People want to be able to ask questions about the restrictions. I mean, all of that stuff. This theater, how much would it cost to get a theater? We had no idea how many people were going to be here. It was like $175 to rent this. I mean, then we had to put, got to buy the signs to put stuff up, and I mean, everything. A lot of the stuff, even we donated, like a lot of the stuff.
No, I'm not trying to beat it.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, okay, well, I think that's the second time somebody asked, and we didn't actually specifically answer, so I started to just like throw out.
Well, just in the future, use the resources we have, and maybe someone has a business, but we could have had this meeting in for free, because I could have provided that. That's silly,
That would
to
be
spend our
awesome.
money to do something like that.
That would be really great
I mean, that's silly.
Yeah.
if you could inform us through the website, we could get that going. That sounds like a great idea for the future, because this, I think, I'm hoping is just the first of possibly an annual meeting we can have. Going back to the gentleman's question up here in the middle, if you look around, I think, as far as I know, we have the lowest annual dues of any subdivision in our area. And having a board in place and having restrictions, we are required to have a board, and with the functions of that board, you incur costs. And the amount that we collect, though we have a pretty substantial amount in the account currently, this is the first year we've actually collected a substantial portion of back dues to where we could actually do something in the subdivision. So had that been in place the entire time and all dues collected and accounted for, we possibly could have fixed things much earlier. And as far as the future goes, we collect the rest of the dues and everyone continues to pay on time. We can, like any other sidewalks may get damaged during the course of our time there in the subdivision that we may have to repair, or any other costs and accruing on possible purchase of that property from the bank in front and building the entrance structure. We have insurance we have to carry on our common ground, and just in case someone strays in and gets hurt, and it's our property, it's all of our property.
My only aggravation is that I just didn't know any. My only aggravation is I didn't know any of this, so the only thing I saw was a $450 bill. So I mean, for me, it's still a big leap to do that, because I mean, you mentioned it's common ground, but it's all wood, it's not using it or anything.
Well, going forward, it's our intention to accomplish some of the things that we set forward with the entrance structures, like we were all just talking. And Jeff made a good point. When the money's not there, it's hard to do projects that cost money. So while there was people paying on time with their dues, there was a good portion of the neighborhood that wasn't. So now that the money is coming in, and everybody, I hope that we've done a good enough job conveying the board and the respect that we exist and that there are dues to everyone now. So going forward, we can have these opportunities now to do things that need to be done.
Well, I mean, just in our subdivision, it's houses and that's it. There's not a playground to support. There's nothing that makes sense to have dues for. I mean, I know people work, they have hundreds of dollars dues a month. They've got 4 lakes, swimming pools, and all kinds of stuff. We don't have nothing but a sidewalk. So for me, I just don't get the point.
There again, we also, those dues are only $50, like Jeff was saying, they're the lowest around. The insurance is a good portion of that, and that common ground is something we legally have to obtain and hold. The board.
So, in other words, if you just take what we're taking in this year, some of that, if you just look at what we're taking in for this year thus far, some of it is people catching up with what they owe. We're in the red for $106 thus far this year. So that's great what you're talking about, but when you, and they, quite frankly, they were talking about a playground when I was here, in part of the common ground. I checked into the insurance. We couldn't even pay for that out of, again, it's a big insurance dollar number. We couldn't pay for it if we used all of the dues for it. The liability is really high.
There's trailer parks.
Yes, sir.
Yes, my wife and I have lived in the subdivision for 10 years, and I know a few people have also said they've lived here quite a long time. We actually worked with Rick before he passed away, had a heart attack that Sunday morning and everything. We knew him well. Had a lot of problems with our house. He worked, got everything fixed. My wife actually volunteered. She said, hey, I want to be a part of the board when it's forming. Rick knew about it, and we haven't heard squat about board, who's running, who's getting elected. This is nothing personal to anybody out there. But as far as getting bills, as this young lady has said, we haven't gotten any bills. And it is highly, highly offensive to get a $300, $400 bill out of thin air after years you've been living there and be expected to pay, and then you're going to bully people with an attorney? That is so offensive. And I don't know, where's the money going? I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody here, but I'm telling you, I know you probably won't change anything, but it is highly, highly offensive that, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this. No, you've done some things. I appreciate what you've done, but the expenses really should be on this website. I have 2 businesses over 25 years, and expenses, it's not that expensive to have a website. I have 2 websites running. They cost $120 a piece to run. It's not that expensive. That's having a webmaster to help you do it. With all due respect, I just don't see where the money's going. So My suggestion, I'll say this and I'll sit down, my suggestion, if it's worth anything, and I think that some people in here would feel this way, is that you really reconsider the, everybody having to catch up for years because of the inactivity of a board that didn't exist or existed in a closed form that nobody could find where to send the money to. And say, you know what, the back dues, we're now, since we're starting the meetings, now we'll start enforcing and sending out bills on a regular basis so people can pay.
Sir, I understand. But first of all, the obligation, as I read it, and by the way, I paid mine every year.
You're on the board, of course you paid it.
You were the board.
You are the board.
No.
We did not.
Okay, look, I understand that, and I understand that it's a big chunk now and everything. However, that's what the restrictions say, okay? We can't do anything different than what the restrictions say. I mean, I have...
Did the restrictions say anything about you having an obligation to communicate with the community? Did you have an obligation? Did you as a board have an obligation, or did only the people have the obligation? Because I don't understand how this contract can be so...
We have the obligation, and sometimes we did not fulfill it.
Sometimes, yes, sir, that's correct. And sometimes we didn't fulfill ours by paying the dues that were not billed to us. And then now you're saying, well, hey, look, now I'm working, so hey, you don't have to pay it. You know, I mean, I don't understand how it's like, well, you're obligated to remain in the contract as the people, but me as the board, you know, I can come and go as I please. That's not really... I don't understand how you're saying that, is that's ethical or illegal or upright
Or responsible. You keep using the word responsible. You got a lot of frustrated people here. I don't know if you realize it.
We understand that, and we, as I said earlier, we're among those frustrated people. And can I just have one more thing to say to this gentleman? The fact is that some people have paid all their dues, and some people are catching up on their dues now. With that, and in the works, we can't tell other people that they're not required to owe these dues, since, you know, what about the people that have paid?
You could offer the faithful people like Mr. Gowan a credit.
We discussed that.
We did
discuss that.
Offer those people a credit, at the same time annihilating something that people owed for something that was not communicated to them.
I agree with you, and I totally feel compassion. We had several meetings over this and didn't know what to do, and that's what we came up with the solution we came up with. We thought that was the fairest thing that we could do to give people enough time to realize their debt, and with no penalty. And again, it wasn't my first choice for a solution, but we're always open to solutions. And as I said earlier, if you have ideas and concerns, maybe come up and talk to us in the board. Maybe try to volunteer.
It was an elusive board. Who are we going to communicate with?
Well, that's why we have these things in place.
Who and where? Knock on the door, no one answers. I mean, who and where of this, all of this? Well, we want to take your. I appreciate it, and I'm sorry. I probably come across like it's all your fault. It isn't all your fault, but it's our problem as a community. It isn't just your problem, and it isn't just your opportunity to solve this problem. You do represent us. I don't know how you got the opportunity to represent us, because I didn't even vote for you. Nobody even voted for you. So, I mean, not that I wouldn't have if I'd had the opportunity, but I didn't even have an option. So,
going back to the restrictions, it wasn't a matter of voting. Rick Avila asked me, he asked Jeff Litzinger, he asked Bob Thibault, would you serve on the board? And unfortunately, I said yes. But no, I think it was worthwhile to have done it. But the way it's written here, it's not an election. I would rather that it was, quite frankly, and I've been on other boards, and it is.
10 years are changing.
But yeah.
So are you guys going to do an election each year to see if you guys switch roles, or other people come in and take, you know,
I can tell you, there will probably be resigning at one point, and nobody wants to be on this board forever.
Hi there. My name is Tom Polkenhorn. I live at 5120 Jeremiah. I'm a retired insurance agent for 30 years up in Arnold. So when you talk insurance, you're kind of talking my language. You mentioned some names of people that I've actually served on boards with. Dan Jones happened to be with one of them. I know Dan Jones. Sitting up there is one of those jobs that doesn't pay a whole lot. In fact, it doesn't pay any. I've served on a few boards that have paid, and I've served on quite a few that don't pay. It's pretty obvious to me that the past board really did the subdivision a disservice. Unfortunately, those people are gone, and what it looks to me, and I'm a homeowner that just bought in the subdivision July of this year, and what it appears to me, we now have a new board that's bringing a lot of this to light. I kind of got a sense when I got my letter, and I was pleased to get my letter, by the way, because I was out in the yard and I had a fellow drop by and his children were thinking about buying into the subdivision. And he asked me what I thought about the subdivision. Well, gee, I've just been here since July, I think it's great. And then he says, well, okay, I'm going to go down and talk to this lady that's having a yard sale out there. So he goes down and he chats with the lady that's having a yard sale down. He comes back and says, sir, I need to chat with you here. There's a problem. A problem? What's the problem? She says she's never received a bill for her dues. And she's found out that she owes several years of dues. Really? And I guess I've said all that to say this. I guess now that we're together as a subdivision, we really can't fix what's wrong from here on back. The only thing we can try to do is do it the right way from here forward. And I have to be honest with you, when I got the letter, I really felt more comfortable about the subdivision because one was a letter, and then it was nice to see the website. And so what it kind of told me is there was a lot of inactivity. When you serve on boards, I can tell you, first, it's hard to find volunteers that serve on the board. Once you get them on the board, you find out 3/4 of them don't do anything. So what you end up, you got to sift through, and you finally got to get you somebody who's willing to take it, run with it. And I think that's what we have here, is we have some folks who are willing to do what's necessary, run with it. So I guess I just want to say thank you for the letter, thank you for the website, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you folks. I think from here on forward, I think what we'll see is things being run a little differently. I think it's important as far as the board is concerned, whether the bylaws need to be changed, and I've been involved in a lot of organizations. They've always been voted on, normally at an annual meeting. They've been voted on by the property owners, by the members. And I think that means that you need to change the bylaws. That's probably a good thing. And I think as time goes on, you're probably going to have a wish list or a to-do list. And maybe that's one of the things that would be nice, that instead of you vote each other in. And you do that, again, because you have to start somewhere. You know, a lot of it's being appointed. And from that point forward, you know, we have to come up with a process for how do we elect the board members. And I think that would probably be a good idea if we have to change the bylaws. There again, it sounds like you'd want to change a few other things besides this. And I answered a few of my questions. One was streets. Well, I found out the subdivision doesn't take care of the streets, the city does. Okay. What about the lights? Do you folks pay the light bill for the street lights?
No, that's also the city.
Isn't that why our dues are so low, because the city does that?
What's that?
So isn't that why our dues are so low, because the city does that?
Yes.
The other subdivision would have a higher.
Yes, it goes back to exactly what you asked earlier, that what are we paying for? Well, the things that we're paying for are minimal, and that's why our dues are minimal.
And how many acres did you say that there is in common ground? Was it 30 acres?
But,
It's a little over 30, I believe.
And the only reason why I'm asking that question, see, now that the subdivision folks know it, you know, as you folks continue to meet, and as the property owners continue to meet with you, there are things that maybe the property owners might like to do with that 30 acres. And so it's kind of interesting to hear that there was 30 acres of common ground. And I suspect some of that common ground could be between my back fence and say the folks that's on the other street. You know, between that might be common ground. I live on Jeremiah. And so let's see, what's that street on the top as you come in the entrance of the subdivision and shoots up? Ezekiel,
yeah, and then there's Isaiah as well. I mean, you know, their common ground backs up to the common ground on Micah. So, yeah.
I just wondered if I could maybe chat with you, since I know Dan Jones, if we could come up with a temporary solution, and I think that might be the wording for a sign up there. That's one of the first things I noticed is why is there not a, I'm assuming what you're talking about when you say signs, a marquee sign, you know, that's introduced in the subdivision to those folks passing by. Well, I want to thank you folks for serving, and thank you folks for what I see. Maybe it might be a fresh start for the subdivision.
So what I got from this gentleman is he is very appreciative for everything you guys are gonna do, and he feels good about paying his $50 because he feels good about the service he's gonna get. We don't feel good about the service we got. That's why we're not wanting to pay those past dues.
I really like what you said back there.
What about all the people that have been paying all
That's what I'm saying.
Why should we pay and you not?
That's what I'm
No,
saying.
I agree that we should have paid. I would complain about $50 here. I complain about the $450 all of a sudden.
I like what she said, where people that did pay, they get the credits going forward, so they're caught with their credits.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for the appreciation. This is a very unrewarding position to be in, and we all have full-time jobs and families, children, and things to deal with, and just the fact that we have enough free time to volunteer to get any of this done is amazing to me. And again, they do a great job. I think this board is really doing a great job. Furthermore, I think if people have, again, questions and concerns, one, not to beat a dead horse, but we are fully bound by our contract that we all signed at closing. And whether we read it or not, or understood it even, we are bound by that. But the fact is, it's really a great constitution because it is amendable. We can get together if there are great concerns, such as how we're elected on the board. If we can get 2/3 of our neighbors and citizens to vote that we do a public election, then that'll be the way it will be. As of right now, it's volunteer based and to be voted on from there. And we have discussed ideas of inviting possibly delegates from other streets to maybe have closer representation to them to be on the board. Obviously, not everybody in the subdivision can be on the board in the meeting, but maybe we can vote and pass the position around and everybody can kind of see what it is to be up here. That being said, back to you gentlemen in the back.
I have a question of pure practicality regarding amending the Constitution or the bylaws. How many people, approximately what percentage of people living in the neighborhood, approximately what percentage of homeowners live in the neighborhood? In other words, how many of these houses are rentals? How many of them are owned by the residents? Any idea right off the bat?
I'm going to give you a ballpark percentage here. I would say roughly 30 homes are owned by people who don't live in those homes.
Out of 130?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, ballpark number.
Question there with the city, do they do any annual inspections that you call for lease or, as you call it, rental property?
Oh, yeah, they do it not annually, they do it every time a piece of property goes up for
I
rent.
understand that, but I'm asking annually.
No, once they move in, that initial inspection is all that our part-time building inspector does. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I believe when I read my contract for the first bought the house 10 years ago, whatever it was, there was an architectural committee. Is the board the architectural committee?
We're trying to form an architectural committee as we speak, but we really could use more people. I have a family, we all have families, and we don't all want to dedicate all of our time. You guys hear me okay? And so the more people that we can get to come out and help us, and we can start that architectural committee. We can start keeping a closer eye on rule infractions and things like that. So by all means, if you guys have some spare time and you think and you're willing to help out, we'll take all the help we can get. And to the young lady back here, I'm sorry, I feel like maybe your aggravation, I agree with you 100% to start with. At the same time, we had to make a decision. Was it a good decision? Maybe not. Maybe not everyone feels like it was a great decision. But we did what we could to kind of mitigate the sticker shock of everybody opened that envelope and seeing that they had back dues. I was in the same boat. I have 3 children. I spend money on Christmas and this and that, and a lot of expenses as well. I hope that we made a good decision to help everyone out by mitigating that interest and delaying the interest just to kind of help people make those payments. So there again, I apologize if that has affected your life dramatically. That was not our intention. Our intention was to try to be just and fair to the people that had been paying. I don't know what else to really say, and I know that you're aggravated and upset. There's a lot of people that are aggravated and upset as well. I will promise you going forward that you will get these quarterly updates. You're going to get a bill. We're going to do our best to help you guys.
I don't know what quarterly.
Well, maybe not quarterly.
We're working.
Somebody had said about quarterly.
There's no empty lots in there, right? No. Everything's full, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So when will we do this? Like when next year? Like, not this, that we're paying catch up, but then when will the next dues be due? $50.
The dues will always come due on January 1st of the year they're due, and you have a full year till December 31st to pay those. And of the current year you're in, that's the bill that's due.
How many property owners do we have in the subdivision? How many lots do we have in the subdivision?
130.
130.
Are there any more questions, or?
Has everyone had a chance to sign in first off? I make sure.
It's not a question. I just want to say that I don't feel safe in our subdivision to walk around because too many people don't leash their dogs. And I know you're not responsible for that, but.
There is a leash law in Hillsborough.
Please leash your dog.
The way the law reads, believe me, I've read it, so I can tell you verbatim. The law reads basically that the dog has to be under control. Now, if the dog has been trained, that's considered under control. It doesn't have to be leashed.
I think it has to be leashed if it's out of your yard though. If it's in your yard and under your control, that's one thing. But if that dog goes into the street, even if it's, I guess, under your control, it's technically not because it's no longer in your yard. But if it's like in the street, then that needed to be on a leash and it's out of, it's in violation. But if it's on your property, off the leash, if it's under your control, then that's fine. But like if you're walking and my dog's off the leash, because she is off the leash, if she ran after you into the street, I'm in violation because she is not on a leash and she's out of my control. She's not in my yard. If she's in my yard and does not leave my yard, then she is under my control, because that's my property. But if she is ever off and not leashed, that's the leash part. That I looked it up, and it has to be on your property, not leave your property.
The ordinance is stated clearly, if you go to the city website, or I think it's under animals, and
yeah, you can call the city, not to, that gets back to that police thing on the parking, how low it is.
well,
I called them and told them I've got a cat infestation. You know, it gives lip service, so.
well, we do have animal control. However, that animal control officer also serves a whole bunch of other functions, and I think we have 7 policemen total in Hillsborough, and so they have a priority, but they have collected animals, by the way.
I was just going to say, I live on Jeremiah, and that's one of the things that I did notice personally, that I kind of felt like me and my family do feel like we feel safe. And the reason I say that is because we do notice that the city of Hillsborough sends the police car through our subdivision. They're regularly. They're normally through the subdivision once or twice a day. So we feel good about that. And just one thing, as far as the dogs are concerned, and cats, when we go to the subdivision, my children had to let their kids go. When I say not let their kids go, they had to give them away. They have to give them to the grandmother, because farm property. I think, being neighbors, there's just a little common sense that has to come into play here. For example, when I go outside, I like to leash my dog. But it's not to say that if there might be a certain occasion that my dog might be unleashed, but I'm with that dog, so I'm responsible for that dog. And I think that's what we're all just trying to say for the neighbors. And we have to respect each other's privacy and respect each other as neighbors. And I think we will get along.
The other thing I might add, by the way, is I back up to a farm, okay? And also, we have the power line that goes through close to my home and all that. We've seen all kinds of animals come through. There's coyotes. There are raccoons. I mean, there's some animals that do your pet in if you don't watch it. So it's not really wise to let them run.
Got a few owls out there, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I saw a golden eagle swoop by my house. I mean, we've got wildlife here. It's just not, it's not a good practice to let them run.
No, I happen to completely agree with you on this point. It's not fair for us to have to worry about someone's dog that's not leashed when you're using our public sidewalks that we're all have the right to be on and feel safe. And with the current dog laws and pet laws that we have in this city and community, this may be a subject we need to bring to the attention of the city council and really express that something needs to be done, because we really, as a board, have no legal right to enforce this other than maybe talking to your neighbor whose dog is loose, which you know how sometimes that reaction can be. But again, this is something that we may want to pursue in a little harder with the city. So
I would be happy to champion that, by the way, and take it to the city.
Well, one question I've got, so it's just not a subdivision, it's not just the city, it's county law that you're not supposed to let your dogs run.
okay, we also have a link to county law on our website as well. So.
Check that out. The way I understood it by the county, that you're not supposed to let your dogs run.
May well be.
I know the city in subdivisions have, because I haven't, but anyway, but I heard it was a county.
I know that the city and the county make a stipulation about dangerous animals. And if your dog is even under a leash and all that, and it attacks somebody, you've got a problem.
Well, if the person owns dogs, why?
Exactly. So it's not really something that we can enforce as a subdivision committee, I don't think, since it's a law.
I mean, that's a whole county, you know.
Yeah.
It's just not for subdivision.
Just because it's not something the board can field, it's not something that we cannot do anything about. And these are the types of questions we're more than happy to field and see if there's anything we can do. So again, just because we can't enforce this now doesn't mean we can't implement something in the future or get the city more involved. So I appreciate you bringing that question up, even if it isn't something that's part of our bylaws.
Well, there was a dog running around, wasn't even from our subdivision. It was running through the whole city. It was in the paper. It was running through the
Chasing
whole
all the
city.
stray cats though.
And, you know, I mean, their spray is going to get out and, you know.
You see, we couldn't legally do anything about the derelict home up there in the corner.
Right.
But we could put pressure on it. And the city responded and helped us, by the way. It didn't cost us a penny for an attorney to push this. The city paid for the attorney to push that item. So there's a lot we can do, okay?
Yeah, Jamie, please say something.
Just, I guess I wanted to say thanks for everybody that came out here and took your time out of your life and your weekend to come out here. This is the first time that we've ever set anything like this up. It was a lot of work to do, and I appreciate you guys coming out and saying the things and discussing things with with all of us and with each other. We did want it to be where we kind of met with each other and were able to, address like big main concerns that people had and everything. And there was a lot of things that I know people wanted to discuss. So I know there's still a lot, and there still was a lot of people that didn't end up showing up. And we have it, so hopefully it's been like videoing the whole time, and it can go up on the website so people that didn't make it here can see it. I don't know how well the sound's going to be and all that kind of stuff, but it's something that we're just trying to do. And I know there was somebody, she was actually saying that she would want to volunteer. Anybody that wants to volunteer, that'd be awesome. If you don't want to come up and tell us directly, because I know you guys, it's getting close to 6 o'clock, it's like 6:10, so I know you guys also have other stuff from families and obligations and things like that you got to do. But I wanted to say that if you guys wanted to volunteer, that'd be great. And if you wanted to just email us or come up to us, that's fine. Any other questions, feel free to email us, or we'll try and stick around for a little bit. I mean, I know that we all, have other things that we have to do too, but, we can try and talk with anybody. If anybody wants to talk one-on-one, we can try and do that. So, but I want to thank you guys too for coming out.
And also on the sign-in sheet, you may have noticed that I had asked for your email address if you want to share it. And that is, if you put your email down there, then we can, as we try and come up with ways, whether through maybe quarterly or at least some sort of newsletter, then we can communicate with you through email instead of having to pay for a postage stamp every time we want to tell you something. Okay, so please share that with us, and we'd be happy to keep in touch better with you through that way.
If there are no more questions, I'm sure we all have barbecues and other things we'd like to get to, being Saturday evening. But again, we'll stay here as long as you feel like we need to answer whatever questions you may have. So if you have something, if you just didn't want to take the mic, if you just want to ask it personally, that's fine. We'll stick around for a little bit. And I really appreciate you all coming out. I wish we could have got more. I mean, I wish we could have been a full audience here today, and maybe more people that have questions. I'm sure there are many more people with questions and concerns that could have been here and possibly had them answered, but unfortunately this is what we have, and I appreciate the attendance that we do have. And again, please feel free to approach us or contact us by email if any concerns and any ideas. If you'd like to volunteer, I mean, we're doing as much as we possibly can here, and I hope that you guys can see that. If not, if there's something we're not doing, please let us know. Ma'am?
The bills that you sent out for the news, Did it also include this year for that? Or is it just past dues?
I think it was.
It does include this year, yes, 2014. The information gets sent out. I make each one of those out individually off of my record. Now, I'm not saying that I'm infallible, okay? So, if someone has a check, you know, a canceled check where they paid it and all that, by all means, let us know. I mean, we did refund, it's on this report that I turned in, we did refund one person's amount that they paid during closing because they paid it as well as the closing company paid it. So I called and asked them, who should we assign the check to? And the closing company said, well, back to the individual. And we have a record where we wrote that check back and gave them the money. We're not trying to rob anybody here, believe me. And I should probably add the reason why we don't have an interest-bearing account, we start out that way, the charges for writing each check and cashing each check exceeded what we were getting in interest. That's why we got a plain vanilla account I set up with Hillsborough Bank where money goes in, we don't get charged anything, and then whatever we have to write expenses on for sidewalks or whatever, it's pretty clean, so, you know. And I look forward to posting what we're doing with the money for all of you who have the concern. Believe me, you deserve it, and you're going to get it, okay?
Anything else? Thank you very much again, Jim, Jamie. All right, well, have a great rest of your weekend, and again, we'll stick around for a little bit if anybody has any more questions.